Aw, you have an Android? I thought you were cool.
What?
Y'all do ruin the group chat.
Oh my god.
No green messages.
This is crazy. This is the bullying that I've had to endure for the last decade, and that's just the stuff that was texted to me. I remember one time a friend was adding my number to their phone, and when they realized it was green, the look of just shock on their face that I would have anything other than an iPhone is just etched into my brain. But now, after 10 years, I have decided to buy an iPhone. Now I'm going to start this video by saying I do not care what people think of me most of the time. I have fought off all the pressure to get an iPhone for years. I have happily touted my Samsung Galaxy phones and stand by the fact that they are really good devices. And I will repeat the phrase that I have said so many times, not all Androids are the same. Now, with that being said, why am I switching from a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus to an iPhone 14 Pro? What finally convinced me to switch over to the dark side? Now, there are a few different reasons here, and they've been brewing for a while. But first, let me explain why I held on to my Galaxy phone for so long. One of the main things that I loved about my Galaxy phones was the camera. The pictures were always crisp and clear, and I would always get hate from people with iPhones whenever I was taking a picture, and then they would look at it later and then realize how wrong they were. So that's something that really kind of kept me in the Galaxy family for a long time. One of my favorite features on Galaxy is the object eraser, which lets you remove anything in the background that you don't like. So if there's a photo bomber that's ruining that perfect shot, then you can easily just draw around them, tap, and they're gone. Although we all know that Apple is someday going to release something very similar to object eraser and then pretend they came up with the idea, but until that day, I just now have to count on my friends with Photoshop. The other thing that I really liked about Android was the customization element, but more recent versions of iOS have introduced more customization through things like widgets, so that's a little bit less of a concern for me. And honestly, one of the biggest things for me was just having a phone that was different from everybody else's. I miss the days when people had different devices and you could compare different features. Like, remember the Sidekick or the chocolate phone or the Envy, which was my personal favorite? Now the expectation is when somebody gets a new phone, it's gonna be an iPhone. And I always really enjoyed defying that expectation. So with all that being said, why did I switch to iPhone? For starters, you can't deny the impact and reach that Apple has in the world of tech. Like, people who have iPhones really swear by them, so I was always curious what all the fuss is about. But the main thing that convinced me to switch over is conversations that I had with family and friends about what I could get on my iPhone that I could never get on my Android. And let me be clear, I did not switch to iPhone so that I could have the same device as everyone else or fit in, but it was really just that they brought up some really good points about things that I could only get if I made the switch. One of the most frustrating tech experiences, and I cannot believe we're still talking about this well into the 21st century, is texting between Androids and iPhones. I have been blamed for ruining so many group chats and for turning them green, and I have been left out of conversations because of that reason, which never felt good. And blue bubbles, green bubbles aside, there's just no way to send high-resolution media across Android and iPhone. This is what it would look like when someone with an iPhone would send me a video, and it looks exactly like the kind of video that I would take on my 2008 flip phone from middle school. This is 100% Apple's fault. Apple is so bent on only making iMessage available on iOS, which is the whole reason that people who use iPhones see green text when they talk to somebody on an Android. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again, this is not an Android problem. I've actually made a whole video about this if you want to check it out. Because videos and photos are such a huge part of how my friends and I communicate, it was actually really important to me to be able to use iMessage since that's how they all send texts and media. And honestly, ever since I switched over, they've been sending me a lot more pictures and videos and voice notes, so that's been really nice. It's also been really great to be able to FaceTime my family, and I've been able to talk to them a lot more, so that's also been another really big perk. One of the features that I am most excited about is AirDrop. This is honestly life-changing to me. Whenever me and my friends hang out, they all sit around in a circle afterwards and they airdrop each other all the pictures and videos, and then I just sit there and I just wait for them to finish, and then I ask, so can you WhatsApp those to me or drop them in a Google Drive folder? And I'm really glad to not have to do that anymore. So now I can finally quickly get those pictures and videos on my phone too. Speaking of photos, I am really excited about portrait mode. Now, my Galaxy S10 device also has a portrait mode feature, but I've always really loved the feature on iPhones more. It always looked a little bit more crisp, and I really like that. Now, this needs to be said, there have obviously been huge camera improvements between my Galaxy S10 Plus and the S22 lineup. And the reason why I held off on upgrading to those devices in the past is my S10 worked just fine. I liked the camera. Making this switch was more about, do I want to just make a full shift over into something new rather than feeling like I need a new Galaxy phone per se. There's one really big feature that made this switch a lot easier, and that is always on display. I loved always on display on my Galaxy phones. It was so convenient just to be able to look down and see what time it is and what notifications you have without tapping the screen or anything. And it was really handy in class, and now it's really useful in meetings. If you want to know how much longer you have to sit there, you can just look down and no one will know. So I was really excited when the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max introduced the always on display on those devices. And that was kind of something that made me think, okay, I can finally make the switch. I don't have to give up something that I really love. I'm honestly really intrigued by Dynamic Island, which is the super extra name that Apple's given to its front camera cutout / notification bar. And so this expands and contracts as different notifications come in. And the thing that's really useful about it is if I'm listening to music and I go to another app, I can see kind of like up at the top what I'm listening to, and I can quickly tap that to get back into that song. Or if I'm waiting for an Uber and I'm on another app, I can quickly tap that Dynamic Island and see how far my ride is. So I'm really excited to play with that. I can't talk about switching to iPhone without talking about the Apple ecosystem. Samsung and Google also have products and platforms that work really well together, but nothing is as seamless as Apple's ecosystem. I already have a MacBook, so I'm really excited to be able to more easily message and FaceTime on there, and to be able to use AirDrop to share videos from my phone to my computer. I don't have AirPods, but I do have Beats, which are owned by Apple. And honestly, my Beats worked just fine on my Android, but I'm curious to see whether there'll be any noticeable changes there as well in terms of productivity or efficiency. Now that I've made the switch, I do understand the community element. Like, it feels like I'm in some sort of exclusive club, even though you can't really call it exclusive when there are millions of other iPhone users. But I do like the feeling of being on the inside. Like, for years I watched other people FaceTime and AirDrop, and now it feels really good to kind of be on the other side of that and be able to participate in that. Of course, there are going to be things that I miss about my Android, even though it was honestly really exhausting to have to defend myself every time someone said something absolutely inaccurate about the quality of my phone. And a lot of times the assumption was that I was too cheap to buy an iPhone, which was really frustrating because Galaxy phones are priced very similarly to iPhones because they're both premium products. And it was just a matter of personal preference. But now I'm really excited to just be able to enjoy my device and not always have to be on the defense. And honestly, I'm really excited about this phone. I'm really excited about trying something new, and I can't remember the last time I was this thrilled to just play with the phone. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is about the iPhone that has people so committed to these products, and whether I'll end up forging a similar connection too. And maybe someday I'll send salty texts to people with green bubbles, just to keep the cycle going. Just kidding, I'm not a bully. Will I regret my decision? Only time will tell, but I do plan on following up after using my iPhone for a few months, so stay tuned for that. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments which device you're using, Android or iPhone, and whether you'd ever be willing to switch over to the other side. Thanks so much for watching.